we're never going to get bored again for the next 4
He's
years.
shaking things up. There's going to
Like
be so much content for the next year solid, especially for all the comedians out there.
Love him or hate him, he was quite good at politics, and he rang Trump, had a good chat, and actually got him to not give Australia tariffs. What's going to affect property prices in supply and demand? The big thing now is there's a lot less supply and a lot more demand. People sleeping in cars is not a problem of owning a house, it's a problem of finding a house to rent. That's the real problem. The reason we need more landlords is because the government's hopeless and they cannot supply the properties and we have to do it for them. I would say, as an investor, there's never been a better time in history. And the next 10 years, Australian investors are going to make more money out of property than they have in the last 100. Okay, guys, me and my team are about to go live. So make sure you grab your beverage of choice, sit down, and you're in for an amazing show. Okay, here we are live, and my co-host Christina Markoski and George Markoski here.
Hello, thank you for having me.
You're welcome. You're welcome. You've been joining me quite a bit lately, and I really appreciate it because it's great.
I finally figured out where the good lighting is in this house. Only took me a month.
In the bedroom. There you go.
That's right. I tried every place where there was a desk, and it was all terrible.
Well, it looks like you really embrace laptop lifestyle.
That's right.
Great. Me, I've set up a little studio in the lounge room, and this is pretty exciting.
Awesome. So, fantastic.
Yeah. So there's been a lot of, Trump's been in power for now
3 weeks.
I think it's been like 100 days.
Oh, wow, that long.
Oh, look, no, it's not 100 days. I just saw an article about the first 100 days, but it hasn't finished yet.
Yeah, exactly.
He got inaugurated in January, so it hasn't been that long at all. You're right.
That's what I'm saying.
But yes. So 24 days. He's been in power for 24 days. And look, one thing for certain is we're never going to get bored again for the next 4 years.
He's shaking things up. There's going to be so much content for the next year solid, especially for all the comedians out there.
Yes, I've got this little thing here. I forgot to put it down the back. I'm going to just fix it because it looks a bit weird. So we're going to talk about not his sanctions, his
tariffs. His trade
right?
war that he's unfolding on the world.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about tariffs and what they are and how they affect things. So a tariff is like a tax. And a classic one is what a government does usually is they create tariffs to protect a certain industry in your country. And I'll give you a good example of a tariff, which is Australia have got a tariff on all imported cars. Now, we don't even manufacture cars anymore, but they were making such good money, I don't think they decided to get rid of it.
They never took it away.
Yes, but
like, we'll just keep that one there. Let's hope no one notices.
Because here in Australia, we used to manufacture Ford, Holden, and Mitsubishi, right? So quite a bit. We were really big in manufacturing, and
particularly in Adelaide, Holden factory.
We had Holden, Mitsubishi in Adelaide. We had Ford in Melbourne, right? So what happened is, this is interesting. The government created tariffs, so therefore our locally manufactured cars would be cheaper and more people would buy them.
So the whole idea is like to insulate the industry.
To help the industry, yes.
Yeah.
And then also what the government did in Adelaide is they really made public transport terrible.
Right, interesting.
Right, they got rid of all the trams. They made public transport terrible because they wanted people to actually buy cars instead.
Buy more cars.
Yeah, I know, which is just terrible. But you look at interesting thing is in America, there was Goodyear and Holden, and what they did, they bought all the trams everywhere and just dismantled them. Just got rid of them all around America, because by destroying the public transport, they actually got more people to buy tires, more people to buy cars, right? So that's a tariff. And Trump, when he first got in, he put tariffs on. And what happened was we had Malcolm Turnbull as our prime minister, right? Love him or hate him, he was quite good at politics. And he rang Trump, had a good chat, and actually got him to not give Australia tariffs.
Was this back when Trump was first in power?
Yes.
Talking about?
Yes,
okay.
That's right. And what he did is negotiated Trump, and we didn't get any tariffs, which is pretty cool. Anthony Albanese called Trump, but didn't get so lucky. I don't know if it was just Trump is different now, or Anthony just didn't have what he needed to, but that's what happened. But also, our ambassador to America is Kevin Rudd. Now, Kevin Rudd insulted Trump before he went into power pretty badly, which wasn't very smart publicly, because he didn't think Trump was going to win. And he said, Trump's a joke and blah, blah, blah. And now we've got him as our ambassador and Trump hates him because Trump doesn't forget things. So this is the question. The question is, these tariffs have been put in place. So Trump put in tariffs against Mexico and Canada, right? I know he's never liked Mexico, but Canada's supposed to be their best friend, but he put tariffs on them straight away. But then what he did, he actually let them off. And because Mexico put 10,000 troops on the border to try to protect the border. So
how did Canada get out of it?
I don't know, but they had a good chat and that happened. And now he wants to put tariffs against Europe as well. Now, we've got to look at trade surplus and what happens. So we import more from America than America imports from us, which means that if we put tariffs on, we get more money than America get from us putting the other way around. That's one of the things you got to be careful when you do tariffs. However, because a lot of the stuff we get from America is actually technology, we may not be able to get it from another country anyway. So if we had a war with them, a tariff war, it wouldn't work that well. The other thing is they've got put tariffs on aluminium and steel. Now, only a very small percentage of our aluminium and steel go to America anyway. So it's not going to make a lot of difference at all. So really, it's not really going to affect us.
You know what percentage?
I think our steel is like 20%.
Right.
Right. So if 20% of our steel goes up 25%, that's a very small portion. But also, there's a lot of other countries that want to buy our steel. Right? We're the best when it comes to steel and iron ore and things like that. The quality, the Australian quality, we just got better quality at a lot of stuff, even raw materials, funny enough. So that's just the way it is.
Well, we're a very, mineral and resource rich country.
We are. And I wish we were like Norway and we actually had a beautiful big wealth fund and got our resource sector to fund it and we'd become the richest country in the world easily. Because Norway's got the biggest fund in the world. It's worth trillions of dollars and they're set for life. They've invested it all, right? That's what we need to do. We need to get our government to start investing. So how's that going to affect property prices? Well, one, it's not going to affect steel and aluminium very much, and we're going to be able to absorb it, so it's not going to affect property prices. What's going to affect property prices is supply and demand. And the big thing now is there's a lot less supply and a lot more demand. Now, some areas in Sydney and Melbourne are actually dropping in price. And that's the whole part. If you look at the property clock, right? I might get my iPad out and share my iPad and just draw the property clock because I think this is going to be handy for people to look and just re-educate people about how it works.
Great to have some visuals.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know my amazing drawing skills.
So talented.
I'm being sarcastic, by the way, but doesn't matter. We're going to do it and we're going to share my screen and we're going to check this out. Because there's other things that are important that I need to talk about anyway. And I want to talk about interest rates. That's what I'd love to talk about because I think that's important. And I'm going to talk to you because the RBA are going to meet on the 18th. We're going to talk about interest rates, but let's finish talking about the property clock. I'm going to draw a clock.
Yep, I can see that circle.
12 o'clock, 6 o'clock. We've all seen a clock before. 3, 9. If you imagine a clock, there's a thing called a property clock. What happens is 12 o'clock's the peak. This is the peak of a property market, and 6 o'clock is the bottom. And then we've got all other places. So what we do, we're always looking at the property market and looking at demand supply ratio. There's about 48 different things you can look at that shows you where we are on the clock. And part of it is supply and demand, but there's also rental demand, auction clearance rates, market cycle timing, there's neighbor price balancing, there's ripple effect. There's a lot of these different things. And I'll go into that in another session because there's 48 different things I can explain, but they're very important. So for example, market cycle timing is very important. You've got suburb suburb A, so properties, they go up around about 7% per year in Australia on average. And now we've got suburb A, and this suburb, this is the way they go up. Right here, the MCT is very high because it doesn't follow 7%. It goes up, it goes down, it goes up and weaves, but always goes back to that 7%. Now, right here, right in this bottom here, and right here, and right here, these 3 times in the property area is the best market cycle timing. What does that mean? It hasn't gone up for a long, long time.
You're buying at the bottom of the market.
That's right. You're buying. This is 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock's really hard to pick. So what we do is we look and we want to get property at 7 o'clock right here, which is very close. 6 o'clock is hard because 6 o'clock, everything's still going down. And we don't know if it's going to go down even more because what happens is property prices go down for 2 reasons. 1 is because of the normal cycle. 2, because that area is just terrible because of some reason. And you need to be very clear because you don't want to buy a property that's going down because the area sucks and you're going to lose money. You want to buy it because of the natural cycle of what happens with property cycle. And that's why you've got to look at the other factors. But microcycle timing is a very important thing. And that's important so you can pick that little spot. We go back here. So you look at those 48 different factors and I'll put them together in a formula and then that gives you where we are on the clock. And what we're trying to do really is we're looking at 7 o'clock. We want to buy here because when you buy at 7 o'clock, it's still very reasonable pricing, but it's already had a little bit of growth. And we know that the property is going to go all the way through here and see this part here. Usually from here to here, property is going to double. When you buy at 7 and you go to 12, your property is doubling. And that's exactly what we're looking for. Because if you can go from 7 to 12 and you're doubling, you're beating the market by a lot. And that's why when you buy in the top 100 is what we invest in. We outperform the market because there's around 15,000 suburbs in Australia. And imagine if you had a crystal ball and you can choose the top 100 suburbs out of these 15,000, you're going to be choosing them all at 7 and you're going to be really doing well. And that's the reason if you look at the last 12 months, we've had all these different developments where people have made, 200,000, 300,000, 400,000, and they've made that and they've only owned the property for a month because they bought at 7, they put a deposit down, we did the finance and it was ready, and then you pick it up here. The thing is, it's gone up 200, 300 grand. That's at 9 o'clock. It's still got plenty of room and plenty of growth. And that's the key. The big mistake people make, and I see this all the time, you see people advertising online and they're like, oh, I'm going to show you the suburbs where you're getting the biggest average vendor discount. That's another thing we look at. And I'd like to see in the comments, what do you think? Average vendor discount. Do you want a big average vendor discount when you're buying a property or a small one? I'm just curious. Type in the chat because it's going to be very interesting.
Type B for big or S for small.
Yeah.
Which one do you think it is? You got a 50-50 shot, so don't be shy.
Yeah. Out of these 48 things, what do you think we're looking at?
Small. I'm seeing a lot of small come through.
Okay. That's
some people think big.
Yep.
Small.
Exactly.
It's more swaying towards small. Okay.
Let me explain. Okay.
Come through. Yep.
Let me explain because this is important. And
this is
over 20 years of real estate experience. I know what I'm doing. I know this really well. The average vendor discount, you want a small average vendor discount in that area when you're doing research for that suburb. Because when you've got a large average vendor discount, the people living there, they know the area better than anyone else. And if they're giving a big discount, there's a reason they're doing that. And when you go online and buy these property courses where they give you the top 100 suburbs for the biggest average discount, what they're doing is they're giving you the top 100 suburbs where you're guaranteed to lose money. And people are paying 10 grand to get this list and get this course, and they teach you how to lose money. What a great course. It's brilliant. It's ridiculous because it's the opposite. A lot of times with a lot of the things that I look at in property, I'm looking for the opposite of intuition because I'm an expert, I know what I'm doing. Because we're looking for properties that are high quality. In a suburb where there's more demand, because we're looking for more demand, less supply. When there's more demand and less supply, the average vendor discount is going to be low because
it's a lot harder to get into those suburbs.
Very hard. When there's a big average vendor discount, there's lots of properties available. You can buy anything you want.
Easy. Yeah.
And you get a massive discount and you're like, wow, I'm getting a bargain until you do a valuation a year's time and it's dropped 100. And then you evaluation the year after and it's dropped another 100 and it keeps dropping. And I've seen people do this. There's properties that people bought in 2014 and they're worth less than what they were then now in 2024. 25 now, but I'll just look at 2024. 10 years and all it's done has gone down. I've seen many properties like that because people thought, hey, we'll get a discount. We'll go back to here. So what we're trying to do is you want to buy at 7 o'clock. And buying at 7 o'clock, you need the research, you need the data. It's very hard, right? Because these properties...
Also very competitive.
Very competitive. Yeah. But these properties are hard. And that's why, having access is very important. Now, then what happens is they start going up in value. When it hits around 11 o'clock, that's when you start seeing in the media, right? And the media are like, oh, Gladstone's gone up. People have made money. This person bought money. The media starts coming out. Then between 11 and 12, people at barbecues are talking about that suburb. But when the media and people at barbecues are talking about a suburb, do you think it's too late? Yes. Too late, because if the average person that doesn't invest knows the suburb's supposed to be good, it's way too late. So but at 11 o'clock, what happens is the property goes up a little bit, but then it hits a peak, it goes back down, and then suddenly you're back at the same price. This side of the equation is never as big as this side. 2/3 of the time, properties are going up. Maybe 1/3 they're going up, then they're sitting there doing nothing, and for 1/3 they're going down, recorrecting. When property markets go down, don't get scared, because it doesn't matter. It's just a matter of when you bought. As long as you bought here, it doesn't matter if you've made your money, it drops a little bit, doesn't matter, because then suddenly you're at 6 and suddenly your property goes up again. Because what you want to do really is you want to buy a property and you want to expose yourself to as many cycles of the property clock as you can.
So George, how do you pick a 7 o'clock market?
I'll tell you how I pick it. I get all the statistics on 15,000 suburbs and I'll look at 48 different factors. And I've got an algorithm that I've perfected, and this algorithm chooses winners, and it's been doing so for 20 years straight. So for 20 years, the top 100 has outperformed all the experts in Australia, and every single person on our program has made money in the last 20 years because of the top 100. And it used to take me a long time with a team of 4 people, and now it's a little bit easier, but I've still got a team of people getting all the data, making sure, because we've got to look at searches, Google Trends, macro. There's a lot involved, right? You've got to be a bit of a nerd. And I'm a bit of a nerd when it comes to numbers. And the reason being is when I started investing, I wanted to invest properly, and I didn't know how to do it. And I didn't know how to pick the right area. It felt like I was in a casino every time I bought a property because I didn't know if it was going to go up. I didn't have any basis for working it out. What do you do? Is it close to a school? Is it close to this? Blah, blah, blah. All that stuff doesn't really matter, because when it comes down to it, there's only one thing that matters. And I'll show you what matters. Supply and demand. That's the only 2 things that matter. Not even handwriting matters, because my handwriting's terrible.
We had a question from Facebook come through from Sarah. If property's going up but wages aren't, how are the general Aussies ever going to get a house? There are many families now living in cars.
It's really sad that that's happening. And the fact of it is, the Australian dream of owning a home is slipping away, okay? Yeah. I'd hate to be the bearer of bad news, but it's true. Because I've been in property since the 90s, and I've seen what's happened, and it's slipping away. Now,
it's only going to get harder.
It's going to get harder. And the fact of it is, people sleeping in cars is a different problem, right? So I'll tell you what, people sleeping in cars is not a problem of owning a house. It's a problem of finding a house to rent. That's the real problem. So if you look at our housing crisis, the problem is we don't have enough houses. And I know that sounds basic, but that's the problem. Not that enough people can't buy a house, but we don't have enough houses because they cost too much to build. There's not enough land, and we just don't have the capacity to build what we need to do, and we're way behind.
But hang on, Australia's got a lot of land. What do you mean there's not enough land?
So when it comes to land, there's a lot involved. So for example, as you know, me and Adam are doing a big development of 120 properties. We've been working this since last Easter. The land's there, but we have to keep going back to council. There's a flood zone. We need to change our plans. A lot of red tape. So there's a lot of red tape, and the council's just going to keep sending us back until we get it perfect. And we just keep spending more money doing this. And in the end, that makes the land more expensive, right? There's no accessible land that the council's approving very easily. But also building costs are just very high, so high it's not funny. And that's the other challenge. It's the supply and demand. So the big challenge is we don't have enough properties, and us as a group, as Positive Property, we've got street smart investors that are creating money for life. Our goal of creating money for life equals the goal of helping the average Australian live somewhere. Because we're not buying penthouses for rich people. We're helping the average Australian live somewhere. So everyone in this program, you can pat yourself in the back because you're part of the solution. You really are. Because we need more landlords. Because the reason we need more landlords is because the government's hopeless and they cannot supply the properties, and we have to do it for them. That's why the government...
Red/green tape galore.
Green tape. Greenies. Yes, the Green Party is stopping it all happening. This is the big challenge. The big challenge is the Australian government's never going to be able to do it. And each year, their capacity to build houses, provide housing for people in Australia goes down.
It gets worse.
Gets worse.
I'm shocked that it doesn't get better. I'm just blown away.
We've got negative gearing, right? Which is the best thing we've ever done, because if we had no negative gearing, we would have more homeless people. We'd be like America with the tent city. Luckily, they were smart enough to get negative gearing, even though Labor tried to get rid of it. They did, and then they put it back in, and they tried to get rid of it again, and they lost the election, and they've talked about it. If you ask me, the government should give us more incentives, not less. I mean, the fact of it is, what they're doing is they're outsourcing the supply of housing to us investors. When there's a crisis, there's also opportunity. Because the government's outsourcing for investors to help give people housing, this is a great opportunity. If you look at supply and demand in Australia and the rental crisis, I would say, as an investor, there's never been a better time in history. And the next 10 years, Australian investors are going to make more money out of property than they have in the last 100.
Trump's trade war, is it going to crash the Australian property market?
Not at all. It's a fizzle. But a lot of people are scared because the media wants to get clicks and everything else like that. And it's a non-starter.
It's an attention economy, so they're going to have a lot of negative news out.
At the moment, with only 20% on aluminium and steel, Australia's fine. However, if Trump goes crazy and does more stuff, then I'll re-evaluate, because it could be big. Because the only reason it's a non-starter is because we don't export a lot of aluminium or steel to America. But if we did, then that would be different. And what happened was, actually, funny enough, during COVID, we had a big challenge with China, and China stopped taking a lot of our resources, and everyone was worried that was going to destroy our economy. And the Middle East just took them instead. A lot of our countries just said, we'll take it. And that was done. The world market's the world market. So that's the thing. Let's talk about February the 18th.
Ooh, February 18th.
Yeah, February 18th. Let's
Save
talk about that. Save the date.
What's happening February 18th?
Okay, well, I'll tell you what's happening February 18th. The RBA are having a little meeting in February 18th, and they're going to be talking about the interest rate. Now, if you look at the inflation figures, inflation's gone down, and it's gone down to roughly where the RBA want it. So if the RBA were being genuine when they said if inflation wasn't too high, they were going to drop interest rates, then on the 18th, they're going to drop it.
Will they, though? That's the question.
Well, the four big banks have already started pricing it in and dropping their rates, their long-term rates. So the four big banks are saying that it's going to happen.
Right.
So that's pretty big.
That's exciting.
Yeah. So I'll tell you what I've been doing in the background, by the way. I'm flying back to Australia because Channel 10 have asked me to come back, and I'm going to be filming for the next season of Buy to Build.
Just had a comment from somebody on Facebook saying, why are you building in flood areas?
I'm not building in flood areas, but I need access to the property through a flood area. You can't. It's illegal. You can't do it. You can't actually build in flood areas anyway. So it doesn't matter. So I'm not doing that. So anyway, so that was everything that we're going to talk about. One other thing I'm going to talk about before we close the live and go in our private group is interest rates. They may drop on the 18th.
Watch this.
0.25 or 0.5. I'm going to be doing a live on the 18th. And if you
I'm
see
going to be crossing my fingers, crossing my toes.
And if you see me with a bottle of champagne, you don't even need to listen to me, because I'll tell you what it is. Then the other thing is the government now are thinking with the HEX debt that they're going to reduce the HEX debt. They're going to make it easier for people.
This was exciting news when I heard
They're going to reduce the HEX debt, and also they're proposing that when you go for a loan, they don't include your HEX debt when they find out if you can afford to get a loan. If they
was this 10 years ago when I needed it?
Exactly. Well, finally they're doing something. I think, look, I think it's a great idea. I really believe if someone's willing to, further their education and put all their effort in, don't make it hard for them to get a loan. It's not fair.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we're going to switch off for our live group, and we're going to go back in our private group. Thank you for joining me, everyone.